In the heart of the vast and unforgiving wilderness, at the foot of the imposing Mount Sinai, God speaks once more. The echoes of their miraculous escape from Egypt are still fresh, the taste of freedom still new. This fledgling nation, a generation that has known nothing but bondage, now stands on the threshold of a new covenant. They have received the law, the 10 Commandments etched in stone, a framework for their new identity. But the greatest revelation is yet to come. It is not a law delivered from a distance, but a presence that will dwell in their very midst. Following a divine and intricate blueprint, the tabernacle has been built. This is no mere tent, it is a portable sanctuary, a microcosm of heaven on earth. And into this sacred space, His presence has descended in glory. The Shekinah, a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, is a constant, visible reminder that the Creator of the universe now dwells among them. For the first time, humanity has a designated place to meet with God. This incredible proximity, this unprecedented intimacy, is a gift of immense grace. Yet it also creates a profound and dangerous dilemma. But there is one overwhelming problem. How can a sinful people live in the presence of a perfectly holy God? God's holiness is not simply moral perfection. It is a pure, consuming, and powerful otherness. Like the raw energy of the sun, it is the source of all life and warmth, but direct, unprotected exposure is lethal. Sin, in its essence, is a corruption, a fundamental incompatibility with God's pure nature. When the unholy meets the holy, by its very nature, must consume the impurity. The very presence that is their greatest blessing could become their utter destruction. The answer is found in the Book of Leviticus. Often misunderstood as a dry collection of obscure laws, Leviticus is, in fact, a divine instruction manual for life. It is a roadmap for navigating the sacred space between a holy God and a human family. Its Hebrew name, Vayikra, means "and he called," signifying a personal invitation from God, teaching His people how to draw near to Him without being consumed. It is the bridge across the chasm that sin has created. Leviticus is a book of detailed instructions, a gracious provision from God. He doesn't just demand holiness, He provides the means to pursue it. He gives His people a holy system of worship, a tangible way to understand and respond to His character. This system was revolutionary, standing in stark contrast to the capricious and often cruel religious practices of the surrounding nations. It was a system built not on appeasing an angry deity, but on restoring a broken relationship. At the heart of this system are sacrifices for sin, priests to intercede, and comprehensive laws of purity and morality. The sacrifices were not a way to earn favor, but a visual lesson in the cost of sin and the necessity of atonement. The priests, descendants of Aaron, acted as mediators, representing the people before God. And the purity laws, governing everything from food to disease, were daily reminders that they were a people set apart, called to a different standard of life in every detail. From the daily burnt offering symbolizing complete surrender to the sacred and solemn Day of Atonement, every command has one overarching purpose: to make it possible for God and humanity to live together in peace. On the Day of Atonement, the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies, the epicenter of God's presence, to atone for the sins of the entire nation. This day powerfully illustrated the concepts of substitutionary sacrifice and the complete removal of sin, providing a clean slate for the community. The events of Leviticus unfold shortly after the Exodus from Egypt, in the period between 1445 and 1405 BC. This is a critical formative moment. The Israelites are camped in the wilderness, a people in transition, caught between the memory of slavery and the promise of a new land. They are learning what it means to be governed not by a pharaoh, but by God Himself. The nation is young, untrained, and fragile, deeply scarred by centuries of pagan influence and oppression. They need guidance not just for their souls, but for the very fabric of their society. And so God, like a loving and patient father, begins to teach them. He gives them a structure for their community, a path for reconciliation, and a vision for a holy life, demonstrating that His deepest desire is not to remain distant, but to draw His children close. In the shadow of Sinai, as the laws of Leviticus are given, a new institution is forged, one essential for bridging the gap between a holy God and a sinful people. At the center of this divine plan stands Moses, God's chosen lawgiver and messenger. But he would not be the one to stand before the altar. For that, God appoints his brother Aaron, inaugurating him as the first high priest of Israel. This was a role of immense weight and responsibility, a sacred trust to mediate on behalf of an entire nation, to carry their sins and their hopes into the very presence of the Almighty. The priesthood was not a vocation one could choose. It was a divine calling, established as a hereditary line through Aaron and his sons, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. They were set apart, consecrated for a life of service within the tabernacle's sacred courts. Their lives would be governed by a stricter standard, their every action a reflection of the God they served. Through them, God establishes a formal system of worship, ensuring that his presence could dwell among his people in a structured and holy way. Yet, this new beginning is immediately scarred by tragedy. In a moment of profound carelessness or perhaps arrogant presumption, Aaron's eldest sons, Nadab and Abihu, offer strange fire before the Lord, fire from a source he had not commanded. The response is swift and terrifying. Divine fire erupts not to accept the offering but to consume the offerers. They are struck down at the threshold of the sanctuary. This shocking event serves as a permanent, sobering warning. God's holiness is not a concept to be trifled with. It is a consuming fire, and approaching him requires absolute reverence and precise obedience. His presence is a gift, but a dangerous one if treated lightly. While the sons of Aaron were designated as the official priests, God's vision was far grander. He had chosen the entire nation of Israel to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Their collective life was to be a testimony to the world, a living demonstration of what it means to be in covenant with the one true God. The tabernacle and its priesthood were the heart of this calling, the place where heaven and earth met. The sacrificial system was the practical, daily expression of this relationship. Each offering was a powerful, tangible lesson. The unblemished animal taught that God deserves our very best. The laying on of hands symbolized the transfer of sin from the person to their substitute, and the shedding of blood was a constant, visceral reminder of the cost of sin. The sacrifices were a daily sermon in action, declaring that sin separates, that blood atones, and that holiness matters profoundly. These laws of worship, diet, and purity were not arbitrary burdens. They belonged to God, an extension of his own perfect character. And by observing them, the people themselves were marked as belonging to the Lord, set apart from the nations around them. The entire system, from the high priest to the humblest offering, was designed to cultivate this identity. It was all pointing to one ultimate reality, the foundational command that echoes through the entire book of Leviticus. God reminds them of their purpose, their identity, and their highest calling. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. In a world dominated by the powerful empires of Egypt and Mesopotamia, God calls his people to forge a radically different kind of society. Their neighbors worshipped gods who were capricious, demanding, and often cruel, with rituals that mirrored these traits, sometimes involving exploitation and even child sacrifice. Against this dark backdrop, God teaches his people how to live in a way that reflects his own character. They are to decisively reject idolatry, not just as a religious rule, but as a rejection of the entire corrupt value system it represents. This call to be different, to be holy, wasn't just about what happened inside the tabernacle. It was about creating a culture of justice, compassion, and wholeness that would be a light to the nations. This holiness had to be practical. It touched every aspect of life, especially economics and social justice. God commands them to care for the poor and the immigrant, not through occasional charity, but by weaving support directly into the fabric of their economy. The laws of gleaning ensured that the most vulnerable always had access to food. The Sabbath was a weekly revolution, a declaration of trust in God's provision over relentless production, giving rest to servant and master alike. And the ultimate expression of this was the Year of Jubilee, a system reset every 50 years that prevented generational poverty and enslavement. Leviticus makes it clear, holiness is not an abstract concept or a private ritual. It is a public, tangible, and just way of life. And yet, the book is filled with rituals, sacrifices, and the intricate duties of the priesthood. Why? Because Israel, like all of humanity, was unable to live up to this holy standard. The sacrificial system was a constant, gracious provision from God to cover their failures and purify the community, allowing them to remain in His presence. But every ritual, every command, every offering was also a shadow, pointing forward to a greater reality. The high priest, who could only enter God's presence once a year with the blood of an animal, foreshadowed the ultimate high priest, Jesus Christ, who would enter the heavenly sanctuary once for all with His own blood. The endless stream of spotless lambs pointed to the perfect, final sacrifice, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. This brings us to the ultimate purpose of Leviticus, the central theme that holds it all together. God desires to dwell among His people. This was the dream of Eden, humanity walking with God in perfect fellowship. The tabernacle was a step toward restoring that dream, a portable Eden where heaven and earth met. But God's presence is like the sun, pure, powerful, and life-giving, but also dangerous to approach without protection. The laws and rituals of Leviticus are that protection. They are the sacred protocol that allows a holy God to live in the midst of a sinful people without consuming them. Therefore, Leviticus shows us that God's holiness is not meant to be a barrier that pushes us away, but a protective boundary that draws us in. His commands are not arbitrary burdens, they are gracious invitations to be shielded from the chaos of sin, to be cleansed from our failures, and to learn how to walk in His life-giving presence. In the intricate details of Leviticus, God whispers His eternal covenant desire, the promise that echoes through the entire biblical story. I will be your God, and you will be my people.